Now, something that I thought was really interesting, and especially, those of you who know me best know that I have a very keen fascination. And I don't know if I would call it fascination. I think I would probably want to just say I pay a lot of attention to the nation of Israel. One, because I love it, and I love the people. I love what God has done through it. I love the fact that they're in the land. I love all those things about it. And going there for the first time almost 10 years ago, it absolutely changed my life. It's more than 10 years ago. It changed my life, absolutely. But I also realized that even if I had never been there, I understand the very, very pivotal place that they have in human history. I also realized that a nation and how it's run from the top is going to have quite an effect on the day-to-day life of people. So whoever is in charge is a big deal if there's going to be something that's different from just the status quo. So in that idea, there's a term that you're probably hearing a little bit more now. You might not have ever heard it before, but it's a philosophy that's been around for a long time, and it's referred to as the left-right paradigm, or even a false left-right paradigm. And so different people will define it a little bit differently, but I guess you can say in the big picture, in the aggregate, you can look at it like this. We talk about it, or if you listen to people that speak about politics, they talk about the left and the right. And the left-right paradigm that you hear a lot of Bible prophecy teachers talk about, it is that there are people who claim to be on the right and people who claim to be on the left, but there's really not a dime's difference between the two of them. They can talk a big game, they might say that they support one thing or another, but nothing ever changes. So this is what they call the left-right paradigm, that they just kind of stake out a particular position, but they have no real interest in seeing anything ever change. And it's why you've started to hear people over the last few years, they just refer to it as the uniparty. There's not a dime's bit of difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, the conservatives and the liberals, or the progressives, or whatever you want to call them. There's really no difference between them. You can find these outlier difference people, and maybe some people that you might have even met through the years, and you go, they are different. People that are genuinely wanting to see something different happening as far as our world is concerned and as far as the nation is concerned. Well, that's certainly something that you could make the case for it being, but is it really something that is a concerted, is it really something that's a well thought out, really well devised kind of a scheme, or is it that everybody is just so they're just so similar in so many different things, nothing ever gets done because nobody ever wants to do anything about it. And you hear so many stories about the people who say they're going to do all these things, and they come to Washington and they're just kind of wet behind the ears, and it doesn't take long for the system to devour them, and they become just like everyone else. So again, the idea of the left-right paradigm or the uniparty, these are terms that we're starting to see thrown around quite a bit. Now, do I agree that things have just been on autopilot for decades? I totally agree with that. Is there really some conspiracy behind it, and it's a concerted effort by all parties above? They'll say one thing on the campaign trail, but never ever intend to do anything different. If that's the case, you have one of two options. It was already planned and predetermined to begin with, or they're just not able to get anything done. Even if they wanted to, they can't get anything done because they're just one person, and they just become corrupted in time, and they get settled into just doing the same old, same old. You can make the case for all of that. The one question that I would have to ask, does it have to be that way, and is it inescapable? What we're watching currently in our times will be a real good test to that. So whether you love him or whether you hate him, President Trump is an interesting character in that he's talking about doing things that nobody's ever talked about doing before. Now, the people who think it's all just a contrived thing, there's really nothing going on, it's just being done for window dressing. And they'll point to the fact that everything that he's proposing to do and all the stuff that's happening with Doge and all the rest of it, it's really coming to nothing. Well, it's all tied up in court right now, but we'll see. We'll know a year or two from now for sure if any of this stuff ever goes anywhere. But we've never had somebody who's willing to say, we're just going to stop doing the way that things have been going. And the opposition that's coming against him is really a pretty interesting thing to see. Now, whether or not we'll be able to make the case a year or 2 years down the road that there's just a uniparty and that there's only this false left-right paradigm, even the people who believe in that, even with all the stuff that's happening in the background, they'll say, All of it's done, it's just window dressing, it's just a diversion, it's just getting people thinking that something might be happening, but they're all in on the same thing. And pretty much the people that are saying that in many different things, they'll always, well, I shouldn't say always, they will oftentimes take more the conspiracy side of any particular question or equation. I'm just a person that thinks, I believe that the people say there's nothing to see here. I don't agree with that. I also don't instantly default to the worst possible of all potentials, and that everything really kind of has a clandestine, conspiratorial side behind it. When I look at a guy like President Trump or anyone else around him, anyone else that's in a place of power, we got a couple of different options here. We have, to me, the options are, these are people that are just fronts, and what they're doing behind the scene is that they're just incredibly evil. They're in the particular place knowing exactly what they're doing, to the point where some will refer to them as Luciferians, or people that are, they have this eyes wide open. They know that they're doing the devil's bidding, and this is why they are there. I kind of think that there's another option too, and I tend to think that this is probably more the case than anything else. These are unregenerate people. These are unsaved people who happen to know an awful lot of stuff about an awful lot of things and have a great deal of power, and they're using it not really fully understanding what's going to come of their labor and how it can be used down the road. I tend to think more in those directions. Are there really fully evil people who know what they're doing is completely and absolutely totally wrong and evil and devastating? Absolutely. But I think, once again, I would believe that the lion's share is more on the side of things that they're just unsaved, unregenerate people who have no idea that they're being used, and their positions and all of it is being used for a much different purpose down the road than what they have intended now. Doesn't mean that they're people that should be winning the Nobel Peace Prize or anything else, but it's certainly, we can either paint them as these conspiratorial people that are just, like almost behind the scenes devil worshiping people, or just people who are unsaved doing what unsaved people do. And again, by the time that you get into those levers of power in those high positions, you have a great deal of influence and power. So unregenerate, unsaved, the people that are not born again, they're going to do what those people do. But the more power that they have, the more it's going to be seen in the day-to-day of things. But I am still watching what's happening in our world today and in our country, and I'm saying nothing's been done like this in a very, very long time. And the globalists in our world really hate what's happening here. They can't stand our president. And so there would be people that would say, yeah, well, that's all for show. Behind the scenes, they're all on the same page. Okay, I don't know how to answer that. All I can go by is what I'm seeing around us, and things are a little bit different. They are certainly different than they were in the previous 4 years in a number of different ways, and Israel's a great example of it. I was talking with a man who has family there and friends, and very, very involved. He's a Jewish man, very involved in that part of the world, and said, yeah, the way that the United States is viewed by the people of Israel now versus the last regime that we had here is night and day. And that's just the people that are there. So that's a major matter when it comes to the end times and where we are as far as prophecy is concerned. Though the United States doesn't have to be directly involved in any of what we think are the wars that are going on or the scenarios that are spoken of, certainly the things that are being put in motion in the world around us were a major player in it. And what happens with Israel and our support for them has a lot to say about that. So where we are, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, we'll have a much better view whether or not this left-right paradigm is something that is completely inevitable, or if the right number of people were together and wanting to do something completely different, could the course that we've been on for decades be turned in a bit of a different direction? I don't know. It's possible, but I don't buy in lock, stock, and barrel with the idea of the left-right paradigm, and everybody in a place of power is doing exactly the same thing, and there's never going to be the potential for something different. I don't subscribe to that entirely, mainly because of this. The left-right paradigm may have trouble penetrating the DC, establishment that it is and the power structure that's there. But a left-right paradigm does absolutely exist, because I'm watching the crazy people doing stuff to Tesla dealerships, and I know where I am on the political side of things, and on the spiritual side of things, I'm on the far right, as people would put all that stuff. And I know that there are people who are completely on the opposite end of everything that I believe, from being conservative on the things of society, and of a spiritual sense, very, very conservative on all things of doctrine and theology, against people who probably don't even believe that God exists. So the idea of extremes on both sides, they exist all around us. To think that somehow that is impossible, that it could ever penetrate Washington, just doesn't, I think, take into account that potentially a person who has the ability and has the mind to do it could absolutely change things there. Whether that's going to be the case here, we will see. Or whether everything gets settled back into the same place of normalcy, again, remains to be seen. I just want to throw it out there that I think that there's another way that this could be looked at, and time will certainly tell. So if you have any questions about anything I shared, contact me through the ministry's website, oldpaththeology.net, and I'll be happy to answer your emails if you have any questions, and look forward to be able to do that with you.